Commander Jack Russell stared at the message on his screen for the fifth time, still unable to believe what he was reading. The blue light from the display cast shadows across his tired face as he sat alone in his office aboard the Earth Defense Fleet Headquarters station. "A summons from the Galactic Council," he said to the empty room, "directed personally to me." The message was brief, but left no room for refusal. The 12 most powerful species in the galaxy wanted Jack Russell, commander of Earth's Third Fleet, to appear before them in 3 Earth days. No human had ever been invited into their inner chambers before. Jack rubbed his eyes and checked the time. 3:15 a.m. station time. Too early to call Earth Command, but too important to wait. He pressed the communication button on his desk. "Connect me to Admiral West, Priority Alpha," he said. While waiting for the connection, Jack poured himself a cup of coffee from the pot he kept brewing in his office at all hours. The bitter taste helped clear his mind. At 45 years old, Jack had spent 23 years in space, rising through the ranks of Earth's rapidly expanding fleet. His dark hair was going gray at the temples and lines were forming around his blue eyes, marks of the stress that came with commanding thousands of personnel and dozens of warships. The screen flickered, and Admiral Patricia West appeared. Unlike Jack, she looked perfectly alert despite the early hour. "Russell, this better be important," she said. "The Galactic Council has summoned me to appear before them in 3 days," Jack said, forwarding the message to her screen. The Admiral's expression didn't change, but Jack noticed her posture stiffen slightly. "Have you responded?" she asked. "Not yet. I wanted guidance first." Admiral West was silent for almost a full minute as she read the message repeatedly, much as Jack had done. "This isn't just unusual, Russell. It's unprecedented," she finally said. "The timing concerns me. Our border dispute with the Volari has been heating up, and suddenly the Council wants a private meeting with one of our fleet commanders." Jack nodded. "My thoughts exactly. It feels like a trap. Nevertheless, we can't refuse. Humanity's position in the galactic community is still too precarious." The Admiral typed something on her end. "I'm sending you authorization to take the EDF Horizon. It's our newest diplomatic vessel. Small enough not to appear threatening, but equipped with our best defenses, just in case." "Should I bring a full diplomatic team?" Jack asked. "No. The message specifically names you alone. We'll bend that slightly. Take Lieutenant Susan Morgan as your advisor. She has the best xenopolitical training in the fleet, and I trust her judgment." Jack nodded. Susan had served under him for 3 years, and her insights into alien psychology had helped prevent miscommunications that might have led to conflict more than once. "Depart in 6 hours," Admiral West continued. "That should give you enough time to prepare and still arrive with several hours to spare. Earth United Government is sending you a briefing package on what we know about the Council's current concerns. And if they ask about the Volari border situation," Jack asked. The Admiral's face hardened. "Tell them only what they already know, nothing more." The connection ended, leaving Jack alone with his cooling coffee and a growing sense of unease. 5. Hours later, Jack stood in the Horizon's airlock watching as Lieutenant Susan Morgan approached. Her tall, athletic frame moved with purpose through the busy docking bay, a small travel bag slung over her shoulder. "Commander," she greeted him, with a sharp salute. "I received my briefing 2 hours ago, still trying to process what the Council might want with us." Jack returned the salute. "As am I, Lieutenant. Let's continue this conversation inside." Once aboard the Horizon, they made their way to the bridge. The ship was small by military standards, designed to look elegant rather than threatening, with a crew of only 15, all carefully selected for their diplomatic skills as well as their technical abilities. "Captain Kelly," Jack acknowledged the ship's commander. "Are we cleared for departure?" Kelly, a square-jawed woman with 20 years of service, nodded. "All systems ready, Commander. Course plotted for Nexus 7 station. Execute as soon as we're clear of the docking bay," Jack ordered, then turned to Susan. "Let's review what we know in the conference room." The ship's conference room was small but comfortable, with a view of Earth through one wall-sized window. As they settled into chairs, Jack couldn't help but stare at the blue-green planet below. Humanity had come so far in such a short time. "It's amazing when you think about it," Susan said, following his gaze. 70 years ago, we didn't even know aliens existed. Now we've got colonies on 17 worlds and a military that makes species with 1,000-year heads starts nervous. Jack nodded. "That's part of the problem. We advance too quickly for their comfort. Most species take centuries to expand past their first few colonies. We did it in decades." Susan activated the table display, bringing up files on each of the 12 council species. "Which one do you think requested this meeting?" "My money's on the Volari. 3 of our colony worlds are near their territory, and they've been making noise about resource rights in those systems." "Possibly," Jack agreed, "though the Zenari have also expressed concerns about our shipbuilding program. They claim our drive systems are too similar to prohibited weapon technologies." For the next hour, they reviewed everything Earth knew about: the council species, their politics, their history, their conflicts, and their interactions with humans. The information was woefully incomplete. Despite 70 years of contact, much of alien society remained mysterious to humans. As the horizon moved past the orbit of Mars, Jack felt the slight vibration that meant they were preparing for their first jump. Soon they would be traveling faster than light, crossing vast distances in short bursts through folded space. "We should rest while we can," Jack suggested as the ship's lights dimmed slightly for the jump sequence. "Once we reach Nexus 7, we'll need to be at our sharpest." Susan nodded but hesitated before standing. "Commander, there's something that's been bothering me." "Why you?" No offense meant, but if this were truly a diplomatic meeting, they would have requested someone from the United Government, not a fleet commander. Jack had been wondering the same thing. "I've had direct encounters with Volari ships 3 times in the last year. Each time they tested our defensive capabilities, and each time we pushed back without escalating to weapons fire. Maybe they respect that. Or maybe they're looking for inconsistencies in your account of those encounters," Susan suggested. "Either way," Jack said as he rose from his chair, "we represent all of humanity in this meeting. The stakes couldn't be higher." As he entered his quarters and the door slid shut behind him, Jack's personal communication device pinged with a message. It was from Admiral West, marked Eyes Only. The message was brief. "Tell them only what they already know. Nothing more." Jack stared at it for a long moment before deleting it. He sat on the edge of his bed, looking out at the stars that were beginning to stretch and blur as the jump drive engaged. Whatever the Council wanted, he knew one thing for certain: humanity's place among the stars would be different after this meeting. The only question was whether they would emerge stronger or find themselves suddenly and dangerously alone. The EDF horizon emerged from its final jump with a slight shudder. Through the main viewport, Jack and Susan got their first look at Nexus 7. Unlike the practical, angular designs of human space stations, Nexus 7 was a massive ring structure that gleamed silver against the blackness of space. Thousands of ships of various sizes and shapes moved around it like busy insects. "It's beautiful," Susan whispered. Jack nodded. "And intimidating. Look at the size of it." According to their briefing, Nexus 7 housed representatives from over 300 species and served as neutral ground for galactic diplomacy. The station completed one full rotation every 26 hours, creating artificial gravity along its outer ring where most of the living spaces were located. "Commander Russell," Captain Kelly called from her position, "we're receiving docking instructions. The Council has assigned us a priority berth in the diplomatic sector." "At least they're treating us with proper respect," Susan said. Jack wasn't so sure. Priority treatment could also mean they wanted to keep a closer eye on the humans. As they approached the docking area, Jack noticed something odd. There are no other Earth ships here, not even our regular diplomatic vessels. Susan checked the scanner. "You're right. The nearest human presence is 3 sectors away, a trading post with 5 Earth merchants registered." That was unusual. Earth normally maintained at least 1 diplomatic ship at Nexus 7 at all times. Jack filed this information away as another reason to be cautious. The horizon docked smoothly, connecting to the station with a soft metallic clank. Jack and Susan gathered their few belongings and made their way to the airlock. Before opening it, Jack turned to his advisor. Remember, we represent all of humanity here. Be respectful but firm. Don't volunteer information, but don't lie if directly questioned. The Council species have centuries of diplomatic experience and will notice any deception. Susan straightened her uniform. Understood, Commander. The airlock cycled open, revealing a tall, translucent being waiting for them. Its body seemed to be made of layered crystal that caught the light and broke it into rainbow patterns. 2 pairs of long arms emerged from its torso, and its head was a smooth dome with no visible eyes or mouth. Greetings, Earth representatives, it said, the words appearing somehow directly in Jack's mind rather than through sound. I am Shilka of the Zanari Diplomatic Corps, assigned as your guide during your stay at Nexus 7. Jack bowed slightly, remembering that the Zanari appreciated this gesture. Thank you for your welcome, Shilka. I am Commander Jack Russell, and this is Lieutenant Susan Morgan. Please follow me. Shilka's body shifted colors slightly as it spoke, turning from clear to a soft blue. The Council has scheduled your appearance in 3 station hours. I will show you to your accommodations where you may rest and prepare. They followed the Zanari through wide corridors bustling with alien life. Jack had encountered many non-human species during his career, but never so many at once. Beings tall and short, furred and scaled, some floating rather than walking, others moving on multiple legs or none at all. The variety was overwhelming. What struck Jack most was how the crowd reacted to the humans. Some aliens moved aside, watching them with what seemed like fear. Others stared with obvious curiosity. A few showed what Jack interpreted as contempt, though reading alien expressions was always difficult. They don't see humans here often? Susan asked their guide, noticing the same reactions. Not in the diplomatic sectors, Shilka replied. Human. Merchants frequent the trading sectors, but military personnel are rare, and invitations to address the Council are unprecedented. Has the Council explained why I specifically was summoned? Jack asked. Shilka's color darkened slightly. It is not my place to speak of Council matters. However, I can tell you that today's session is unusual in another way. It will be broadcast throughout galactic space. Jack and Susan exchanged concerned glances. A public hearing meant this wasn't just a diplomatic meeting. It was a statement, a message the Council wanted to send to everyone watching. Here are your quarters. Shilka stopped before an unmarked door that slid open at their approach. I will return in 2 hours to escort you to the Council chamber. There are translation devices on the table should you need to communicate with station services. After Shilka left, Jack secured the door and did a quick sweep for listening devices. Standard procedure, though probably useless. Alien surveillance. Technology was likely advanced enough to bypass human detection methods. A public hearing, Susan said, sitting on one of the room's oddly shaped chairs. They're putting us on trial, aren't they? Jack nodded grimly. Seems that way. The question is for what? The border disputes with the Volari have been tense, but within accepted parameters of space law. Unless they know something we don't think they know, Susan suggested quietly. Jack didn't respond to that. Instead, he spent the next hour reviewing information about the Council members one more time. Susan used the time to study the station's layout, looking for emergency exit routes, just in case. When Shilka returned, the Zanari's color had shifted to a deep purple, which Jack remembered indicated formality or ceremony among their kind. The Council is ready, Shilka announced. Please follow me. The walk to the Council chamber took them through increasingly grand corridors. The crowds thinned as security. Checkpoints increased. Jack noticed guards of various species watching them closely, some with obvious weapons, others whose bodies seemed to be weapons themselves. Finally, they reached a massive set of doors that appeared to be made of some kind of living material, slowly pulsing with light. The Council chamber lies beyond, Shilka said. I must inform you of protocol. You will stand on the central platform, Address the council as honored council before speaking. Do not approach any council member's seat. Answer all questions, truthfully and completely. The translucent being paused, then added, "The council values honesty above all else, Commander Russell. Remember that." The doors parted silently, revealing an enormous amphitheater. 12 massive seats arranged in a semicircle dominated the room, each designed differently to accommodate the unique physiology of its occupant. Between the seats and along the walls, hundreds of smaller chairs held what Jack assumed were aides, translators, and other officials. In the center was a simple round platform, illuminated by bright light from above. "Come forward," boomed a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Jack walked onto the platform with Susan one step behind him. From this position, he could see each council member clearly for the first time. Some he recognized from briefings: the insectoid Krell representative, the gas-filled containment suit of the Hefferan delegate, the furred and massive Ursid elder. But his eyes were drawn to the Valari seat, where a sleek predatory figure with scaled skin and amber eyes watched him intently. "High Commander Zexicon," Jack whispered to Susan, recognizing his counterpart from several tense standoffs in disputed territories. The Valari's presence confirmed Jack's suspicions. This hearing had something to do with the border conflicts. What troubled him was the intensity of Zexcon's stare. The Valari looked not just hostile but concerned, almost afraid. "Commander Jack Russell of Earth," announced a tall, elegant being with 6 arms that Jack identified as the Council Elder, the current head of the galactic body. "You stand before the 12 to answer accusations of grave concern to all peaceful species." Jack stepped forward. "Honored Council, I come ready to address any concerns regarding Earth or its activities." "Then explain," said the Elder, activating a holographic display in the center of the chamber, "why your species has been developing these." The image showed what appeared to be massive weapons, spherical devices with complex technological components that Jack instantly recognized as classified Earth technology. His blood ran cold. These were quantum displacement prototypes, theoretical weapons designed to remove targets from reality itself, shifting them into another dimension. But the prototypes existed only in Earth's most secure research facilities. How had the Council obtained these images? "These weapons," continued the Elder, "violate 17 different sections of the Galactic Weapons Treaty. Their very existence threatens the stability of the galaxy." Jack looked at Susan, whose face had gone pale. This was far worse than a border dispute. This was an accusation that could lead to Earth's complete isolation, or worse. "Honored Council," Jack said, his mind racing as he considered how to respond. "Before I address these images, I request to speak to the Council alone, without my advisor present." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Such a request was highly unusual. "For what purpose?" demanded the Krell representative, mandibles clicking. "What I must say is classified at the highest level of Earth government," Jack replied. "I am authorized to share it only with the Council itself." The 12 members conferred among themselves for several moments before the Elder responded. "Your request is granted, Commander Russell. Lieutenant Morgan will be escorted to a waiting area." Susan looked at Jack with alarm, but he gave her a reassuring nod. "It's all right, Lieutenant. Trust me." As Susan was led away, Jack stood alone, on the platform facing the 12 most powerful beings in the galaxy. The doors sealed shut with a deep resonant sound, and the lights dimmed everywhere except on Jack. "Now, Commander." Jack stood alone on the platform, the eyes of the 12 most powerful beings in the galaxy fixed upon him. The silence in the chamber was heavy, expectant. He glanced up at the recording devices that would broadcast his words across thousands of worlds. Whatever he said now, there would be no taking it back. "Honored Council," Jack began, his voice steadier than he felt. "I will not deny what your evidence shows. Earth has indeed been developing quantum displacement technology." A wave of murmurs swept through the chamber. The Ursid representative growled something to an aide, while the Valari, Zexcon, leaned forward with narrowed eyes. "However," Jack continued, "before you judge us, I ask that you hear our reasons. To understand why Earth has taken these actions, You must first understand who we are." Jack took a deep breath. What he was about to say went against every security protocol he'd sworn to uphold, but he believed it was humanity's only chance. "Humans are not who you think we are," he said. "We are not who we've presented ourselves to be." The council elder's expression shifted slightly, showing something like curiosity. "Explain yourself, Commander." "For most of our history, humans fought each other," Jack said. "Wars over land, resources, beliefs. We nearly destroyed ourselves several times. But each conflict taught us something: how to adapt, how to survive against overwhelming odds, how to think in ways our enemies wouldn't expect." Jack began to pace slowly on the platform. "When we finally united as one planet and looked to the stars, we carried those lessons with us. We knew the galaxy might be dangerous, we knew we might be outmatched, so we prepared accordingly." "This history lesson is fascinating," interrupted the Krell representative, "but irrelevant to the charges." "It is entirely relevant," Jack countered, "because it explains why, when we found the crashed ship on Mars, we kept it secret from the rest of the galaxy." The chamber went completely silent. Jack had their full attention now. "A ship crashed on one of your worlds?" asked the elder. "When was this?" 60 years before official first contact," Jack replied. "A scout vessel with advanced technology and detailed files on Earth. It belonged to the Volari Imperium." All eyes turned to Zexicon, whose scaled skin had darkened in what Jack recognized as the Volari equivalent of alarm. "The human is obviously lying," Zexicon hissed, "trying to deflect from their own violations." Jack shook his head. "We have the ship. We have the bodies of the crew. Most importantly, we have the ship's data records, which showed the Volari had been watching Earth for over 300 years, occasionally abducting humans for study." Jack activated his personal data device, projecting images into the chamber's holographic system. The first showed the wreckage of an unmistakably Volari vessel half buried in red Martian soil. The next showed preserved Volari bodies in a secure facility. Then came data screens with Volari script. "Our linguists took decades to translate these files," Jack explained. "What we found was disturbing. The Volari had designated Earth as a potential conquest, but were waiting until we either destroyed ourselves in war or developed just enough to be useful as a subject species. The ship was part of their monitoring program." The council chamber erupted in voices. The elder raised all 6 arms, calling for order. "These are serious accusations, Commander Russell," the elder said. "Do you have proof these records are authentic and not fabricated?" "I do," Jack replied. "But first, let me explain why this matters to the current charges against Earth." Jack gestured to the image of the quantum displacement weapon still hovering in the chamber. "When we translated the Volari records, we discovered they had already developed displacement technology centuries ago. They used it against the Baron civilization, a species none of you have heard of because they no longer exist in this reality." The chamber went silent again. Even Zexcon seemed at a loss for words. "We weren't developing these weapons to threaten the galaxy," Jack continued. "We were reverse engineering Volari technology to create a defense against it, because according to the records we found, Earth was next on their list for either conquest or displacement depending on how quickly we advanced." Jack turned directly to face Zexcon. The Volari strategy was clear: isolate Earth, limit our technological development through sabotage and interference, then either absorb us as a client species or remove us entirely if we became problematic. "This is absurd." Zexcon finally found his voice. "The human presence altered records and expects the council to believe them over a founding member species." The Zanari representative, whose crystalline form had turned a deep, thoughtful blue, spoke for the first time. "If what the human says is true, it would explain their species' unusual behavior since joining the galactic community." "What behavior?" asked the Hefferan delegate, their voice bubbling through translation systems. "Their rapid military expansion," the Zanari replied. "Their reluctance to share certain technologies. Their insistence on defending seemingly worthless border systems near Volari space. They have been preparing for a threat they believed was coming." Jack nodded. "Exactly. We knew we couldn't match the Volari fleet for fleet, ship for ship. We're too young a spacefaring species. So we developed countermeasures in secret, including these weapons. If your intentions were defensive, the Elder asked, why did you not bring these concerns to the Council when Earth first joined the galactic community? It was the question Jack had been dreading. Because we didn't trust you, he said simply. The Volari are founding members of the Council. They have allies. Among you, trade agreements, mutual defense pacts. We had no way of knowing if our evidence would be taken seriously, or if bringing our accusations would simply accelerate their plans against us. Jack looked around the chamber, meeting the gaze of each council member in turn. Humans have been alone for most of our history. We fought our wars without allies. We survived our disasters without help. When we learned we were being watched, studied like animals, and marked for eventual conquest or extinction, we did what we have always done. We prepared to defend ourselves by any means necessary. The council members conferred among themselves in their own languages. Jack waited, knowing he had just revealed Earth's greatest secret and gambled humanity's future on the Council's response. Finally, the Elder spoke. These accusations require evidence, Commander Russell. The Council cannot act on claims alone, no matter how disturbing they may be. I understand, Jack replied, which is why I asked to speak alone first. What I'm about to share is known to only a handful of people on Earth. If you will permit Lieutenant Morgan to return, she carries the full evidence package, authenticated in ways that cannot be forged or altered. The Elder considered this request, then nodded. The doors opened, and Susan was escorted back into the chamber. She looked at Jack with concern, clearly wondering what had happened in her absence. Lieutenant, Jack said, it's time for the Omega disclosure. Susan's eyes widened. The Omega disclosure was the highest-level emergency protocol, the release of all classified information regarding the Volari threat. It had never been activated before. Are you sure, Commander? She asked quietly. Jack nodded. It's our only chance. Susan reached into her uniform pocket and removed a small crystalline data device, one specifically designed to interface with Council systems and provide unhackable, unalterable evidence. Honored Council, she said, stepping forward. What you are about to see will change your understanding of both humanity and the Volari Imperium forever. As Susan activated the device, Jack watched Zexcon. The Volari commander's expression had shifted from outrage to something Jack recognized from his years of combat experience: fear. It was the look of someone who knew their secrets were about to be exposed. The council chamber darkened as the evidence began to play, and Jack prepared himself for what would come next, the moment when the galaxy would have to choose between believing humans or the Volari. Everything depended on what happened in the next few minutes. The crystal data device in Susan's hand glowed with a soft blue light as she placed it in the center of the council's holographic projector. Immediately, the air above the platform filled with images, documents, and video recordings. What you are seeing comes from Earth's most classified files, Susan explained, her voice steady despite the enormity of what they were doing. Everything has authentication markers embedded at the quantum level, impossible to fake. The first images showed the crashed Volari ship again, but in much greater detail. Then came video of the recovery operation from decades ago. Human scientists in primitive protective suits carefully extracting technology and bodies from the wreckage. The timestamp on the footage showed a date 58 years before humanity's official first contact with alien life. Our scientists spent years reverse engineering what we found, Jack continued. Most of the technology was far beyond our understanding at the time, but the ship's data storage was eventually decoded. That's when we discovered the truth. The projection shifted to show translated Volari documents, mission reports spanning centuries of Earth observation. The Volari classified Earth as a potential asset world, with humans categorized as adaptable labor species, Susan said, highlighting specific sections. They had a three-phase plan: observation, assessment, and then either assimilation or elimination, depending on how we developed. Jack watched the council members carefully. Most appeared shocked by the evidence, But Zexcon's reaction was the most telling. The Volari commander sat rigid in his seat, eyes fixed on the display. The evidence goes beyond just documents, Jack added. The crashed ship contained biological samples, human samples from throughout our history. The hologram changed to show preservation chambers containing what were clearly human tissue samples. Labels in Volari script showed dates going back thousands of years. They've been taking humans for study since before our recorded history, Susan explained. Testing our adaptability, our resistance to various conditions, like scientists studying laboratory animals. The Zanari representative's crystalline body flickered with colors of distress. This pattern of behavior, it is disturbingly familiar. What do you mean? Asked the elder. The Volari approached the Zanari 4 centuries ago with warnings about a hostile species near our home system, the Zanari explained. They offered protection in exchange for resource rights. We later discovered the hostile species never existed. It was fabrication to manipulate us into a disadvantageous alliance. Jack nodded. The evidence suggests this is their standard strategy. Isolate developing species, manipulate their development, then either absorb them as clients or eliminate them if they become potential rivals. These are historical matters. Zexcon finally spoke, his voice cold. Even if these records were authentic, which I dispute, they reflect policies from before the Galactic Council existed. They have no bearing on current relations. If only that were true, Jack said grimly. Susan activated the next part of the evidence package. The hologram showed surveillance footage of modern Volari ships in Earth's solar system, carefully hiding behind moons and asteroids, monitoring Earth communications and movements. These recordings are from just 3 years ago, Susan explained. Our deep space sensors detected them despite their stealth technology. The most damning evidence came next. Intercepted Volari communications discussing a human containment protocol. The messages, verified as coming from Volari military channels, detailed plans to limit Earth's expansion by creating artificial conflicts along border regions. Commander Zexcon appears in several of these communications, Jack pointed out as the Volari commander's image appeared in a recorded meeting, discussing ways to undermine Earth's alliances with other species. The council chamber had gone completely silent. Even Zexcon seemed to have no immediate response. But the final evidence is the most troubling, Jack said. 3 months ago, Earth Special Forces conducted a covert operation to a hidden Volari research facility on an uninhabited moon in the Proxima system. The hologram shifted to show helmet camera footage from armored human soldiers moving through dark corridors. The footage was shaky but clear enough to see what they discovered, row after row of stasis pods, each containing a human body. 2,812 humans, Susan said quietly, abducted from Earth and colonies over the past decade alone. Some were being studied. Others were being genetically modified for unknown purposes. One of the council members, a being made of intertwined plant-like structures, leaned forward. Were these humans recovered? Jack nodded. Those still alive were. Many were not. This facility was operating with the direct knowledge of the Volari High Command, Susan added, bringing up command authorization codes found in the facility's systems. This was not rogue action. This was official Volari policy. Zexcon finally erupted from his seat. These are fabrications. Clever human propaganda designed to turn the council against a founding member. The Volari Imperium rejects all these accusations. The elder raised all 6 arms for silence. The authentication markers on this evidence would be extremely difficult to falsify. Commander Zexcon, how do you explain these recordings of yourself discussing human containment? Taken out of context, Zexcon hissed. We have legitimate security concerns about rapid human expansion. Any discussions about containment were purely defensive. And the human subjects? Asked the Krell representative, mandibles clicking in, what Jack recognized as agitation. How do you explain living humans in a secret Volari facility? I have no knowledge of such a facility, Zexcon said, but his hesitation was noticed by everyone. The Zanari representative's body had turned a deep violet, a color Jack had never seen a Zanari display before. There is precedent for this behavior. 6 developing species have been annexed by the Volari in the last millennium using similar isolation tactics. We have always accepted their explanations, but in light of this evidence, the council chamber erupted in overlapping voices as members began discussing among themselves. The elder again called for order. "Commander Russell," the elder addressed Jack once the chamber quieted. "If what you say is true, why reveal this now? And why develop weapons that violate council treaties instead of bringing this evidence forward earlier?" It was the crucial question, and Jack knew his answer would determine humanity's fate. "We developed the quantum displacement technology as a deterrent, not as a weapon of aggression," Jack explained carefully. "We knew from the Volari records that they had used such technology before against species that threatened their interests. We needed a countermeasure." Jack stepped forward, looking directly at each council member in turn. "As for why now, we recently intercepted communication suggesting the Volari were preparing a major operation against Earth colonies. We believe they've grown concerned about our rate of advancement and decided we've become too dangerous to contain." "That is absurd," Zexcon shouted. "The Volari have no hostile intentions toward Earth." "Then explain this," Susan said, activating the final piece of evidence. The hologram showed a massive Volari fleet gathering at a secret staging area just beyond the border of known Volari space. Dozens of warships, including 3 Planet Killer-class vessels. "This fleet was assembled in the last 30 days, Jack said. Their projected course based on fuel supplies and positioning takes them directly to the Earth colony at Tau Ceti, a colony that happens to be where we've made our greatest technological advances in the last 5 years. The council members stared at the evidence, clearly shocked by its implications. Even Zexicon seemed momentarily speechless. "Honored Council," Jack said into the silence. "Earth does not want war with the Volari or any species. We've kept these matters secret and developed defensive capabilities because we saw no other choice. But now we're asking for your help." He looked at each council member, his expression solemn. "Investigate our claims, send observers to verify our evidence, and help us establish a framework for peaceful coexistence where no species needs to fear extinction at the hands of another." The elder studied Jack for a long moment, then turned to Zexicon. "The Volari representative will be given opportunity to respond to these accusations after the council has examined the evidence in detail." Zexicon's amber eyes narrowed. "The Volari Imperium rejects the authority of the council to investigate sovereign Volari activities. Any attempt to do so will be considered a hostile act." The threat hung in the air, changing the atmosphere in the chamber. Several council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "Then you leave us little choice," the elder said, all 6 arms moving in a formal pattern that Jack didn't recognize. "This council will recess for 1 standard day to examine the evidence presented. During this time, the Volari delegation will remain on Nexus 7, and no communications will be permitted to Volari space." Zexcon's scales darkened with anger. "You cannot detain a council representative." "We are not detaining you," the elder replied calmly. "We are following council protocols for cases involving serious accusations between member species. Protocols the Volari helped establish." As the council members began to file out, Jack and Susan found themselves surrounded by security personnel, a mix of species, all heavily armed. Jack stood at the viewport in their secured diplomatic quarters, staring at the stars. It had been 6 hours since the council recessed, and the waiting was harder than the confession had been. Susan sat nearby, reviewing data reports on her tablet. "Any word from Earth?" Jack asked. Susan shook her head. "Communications are restricted until the council reconvenes, but Admiral West managed to send 1 encrypted message through." "And?" "She's furious we revealed classified information," Susan said with a small smile. "But she also says the 3rd fleet has been mobilized just in case the Volari decide to accelerate their plans." Jack nodded. He had expected as much. The gamble he had taken wasn't just with his career, it was with the safety of every human in the galaxy. The door chimed, and Shilka entered. The Zanari's crystalline body had taken on a golden hue that Jack hadn't seen before. "The council is ready," Shilka announced. "They request your presence immediately." The walk back to the council chamber seemed longer this time. Jack noticed the corridors were emptier, the security heavier. News of the human accusations against the Volari had clearly spread throughout the station. When they entered the chamber, Jack immediately noticed two things. First, the Volari seat was empty. Zex Khan was nowhere to be seen. Second, representatives from several non-council species now sat in observer seats around the perimeter. Commander Russell, Lieutenant Morgan, the elder greeted them. "The council has reviewed your evidence extensively." Jack and Susan took their positions on the central platform. "Before we deliver our findings," the elder continued, "we must inform you that Commander Zex Khan attempted to leave the station 3 hours ago. When prevented from doing so, he and his security detail initiated violence. Zex Khan did not survive the encounter." Jack exchanged a surprised glance with Susan. They hadn't expected things to escalate so quickly. "The Volari government has been informed," the elder added. "They have recalled their diplomats from Nexus 7 and closed their borders. It appears they are preparing for conflict." "Then our evidence was compelling," Jack said. "Indeed." The Krell representative's mandibles clicked rapidly. "We have verified the authentication markers. The evidence cannot have been falsified." The elder's 6 arms moved in a formal pattern. "By unanimous decision, the Council has formed a special investigative body to further examine humanity's claims against the Volari Imperium. Representatives from all Council species will participate, including, for the first time, a human representative." Jack felt a wave of relief wash over him. It wasn't a complete victory, but it was far better than he had dared hope for. "Additionally," the elder continued, "all Volari fleet movements will now be monitored by Council observers. Their borders will remain open for these observers, or they will face sanctions." As the meeting concluded, Jack and Susan found themselves approached by representatives from several species. A tall, furred being that Jack recognized as an Arcturan spoke first. "For decades, my people have lived in fear of Volari expansion," the Arcturan said. "We have suffered their containment strategies as well. Perhaps now, with humanity's evidence, we can finally find protection and unity." Similar sentiments came from other representatives, species who had experienced Volari manipulation or aggression, but lacked the evidence or strength to challenge them. As they prepared to return to their ship, Jack received a message from Admiral West. "Return immediately. The galaxy just got a lot more complicated." Looking out at the stars during their departure from Nexus 7, Jack wondered what would come next. War with the Volari seemed likely. But for the first time, humanity wouldn't face the threat alone. "Was it worth it?" Susan asked, joining him at the viewport. Jack nodded slowly. "For too long we've been hiding who we really are, pretending to be less capable, less dangerous than we are. Now the galaxy knows the truth." "That we'll fight back?" Susan suggested. "No," Jack said. "That we'll survive, no matter the cost. That's what makes us human." As the EDF Horizon jumped to light speed, carrying them back to Earth and whatever future awaited, Jack knew one thing for certain. Humanity's place in the galaxy had changed forever. The isolation was over. For better or worse, the real relationship between humans and the cosmos had begun.